question and clarification about my question about the reincarnation of the elephant. If it's one king who did something and was reincarnated into an elephant, are all elephants then the reincarnation of the same elephant who was the king who did the bad thing?
Right, yeah, because he was the father elephant, okay? The first elephant, that's how he's supposed to have come into existence. And all the elephants that you see today are descendants of that elephant who himself is a transformed or reincarnated human, according to these Khurafati narrations in the sources.
Transformation, mosque. What is it? Think of mosque as a supernatural transformation where someone is physically changed into a worse or uglier form, often as a punishment. This idea comes from both linguistic sources and Islamic narrations. Linguistic explanation. The word mosque refers to transforming someone into a degraded or repulsive shape. For example, in some traditions, people were transformed into apes or swine as a divine punishment. In Islamic narrations, certain sinners were transformed into animals. These individuals didn't just live on, they were annihilated after 3 days and left no descendants. So, unlike regular animals, these transformed animals did not exist before transformation, nor did they live more than 3 days after their transformation, a unique phenomenon directly tied to divine punishment due to specific sins and isn't a normal occurrence, but a severe consequence of disobedience, as emphasized in the following verses. Quranic evidence, Surah Al-Baqarah 265, talks about people who violated the Sabbath, and as a result, God said, "Be you spurned apes." Surah Al-Araf 766, similar mention of defiance leading to their transformation. Surah Al-Ma'idah 5 verse 60 extends the idea, mentioning people turned into apes and swine due to their rebellion. Surah Yasin shows God's ability to deform people if he wills.
But we don't believe in reincarnation.
Exactly. But if you go into the Twelver Imami Hadeeth corpus, you will see narrations attributed to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, in which they claim reincarnation. They claim that entire animal species are reincarnations of humans. All sorts of birds. You have certain birds who are, therefore we as human beings should not be consuming them. You will see there's a whole bab, a whole bahth, which is called Hurmatul Musukh, the prohibition against reincarnated animals. And the vast majority of Twelver Imami Fuqaha actually accept this. At least in their advanced Bahthul Kharij, they do not refute this, or they do not... but yeah, there is a lot of acceptance for these kinds of khurafat at the higher level, unfortunately.
Reincarnation Tanasuk, a completely different concept. On the other hand, Tanasuk, or reincarnation, is about the soul moving from one body to another after death. It's the belief held by some religions like Hinduism and Buddhism that a person's spirit gets another chance at life in a new form, human, animal, or otherwise. Key difference. Unlike mosque, reincarnation doesn't involve the punishment of physical transformation in the same lifetime. It's about spiritual continuation and rebirth.
Bahth of Musukh. There's a whole group of animals that have been declared haram in Shia fiqh based on fabricated narrations that claim that the reason why they're haram is because they are reincarnations of sinful humans. And this is their attributed, this kind of khurafat is attributed to our imams, mostly through weak and fabricated chains, but sometimes occasionally, you shouldn't be surprised.
The significance of mosque in Islamic belief. For Muslims, the concept of mosque reminds them of God's power and justice. It also illustrates the ultimate consequences of rebellion against divine commands, as the Quran explicitly mentions. Denying mosque would mean ignoring these verses and the lessons they offer. The first interpretation, a metaphorical change. An interpretation suggests that mosque wasn't a physical transformation, but a metaphorical one. Here's how they explain it. These Israelites behaved immorally, like monkeys and pigs, refusing to correct their ways. As a result, God made their immoral behaviors a permanent part of their character. They didn't physically change, but their inability to change their sinful ways by itself was a punishment. The second interpretation, a physical transformation without loss of humanity. This is the most commonly accepted explanation. God physically transformed these sinners so their faces resembled those of monkeys and pigs. Despite their external transformation, they remained human internally. They could still feel pain, humiliation, and the weight of their punishment. Why? If they had been transformed entirely and lost their human nature, they wouldn't have been able to feel the punishment of humiliation intended as a lesson. These transformed individuals lived for only 3 days before their total annihilation, leaving no descendants. Key point, the animals we see today, monkeys, pigs, and others, are not descendants of these transformed sinners. They existed before and after the transformation and extinction of the sinners described in the Islamic texts. The third interpretation, complete transformation. This interpretation goes further. The sinners were entirely transformed into monkeys and pigs, both physically and spiritually. They lost all human characteristics, becoming indistinguishable from actual animals. This complete transformation was a severe warning and lesson for others, showing that their immoral behavior could lead to a total loss of humanity. What do these interpretations teach us? God's power is limitless. The Quran emphasizes that nothing is beyond God's power. Verses like Surah Al-Imran 3:189 and Surah Yasin 36:82 remind us that if God wills something, he can make it happen. Therefore, even the third interpretation of complete transformation is valid because God can transform humans into animals. A lesson for humanity. The forms of pigs and monkeys were used to transform sinners as a curse, not because these animals were inherently sinful. As a result, eating such animals was prohibited, not because they were once humans, but because their forms were associated with punishment.